little trash can. It's got a lid and handles. It looks just like a bigger one, but it's little, so that makes it cute. It is looking a little bit worse for wear because I gave it a white vinegar sponge bath so that paint would have something to stick to. But yeah, you heard right, I'm painting a trash can. Let's do it. So step one, after giving it the white vinegar sponge bath, was to give the entire can a base layer. As soon as I did this, I realized, yeah, it's going to at least need 2 layers because it was very splotchy and you could layers that were a little bit more transparent. You could still see the can underneath it. So I gave it 2 layers of this sort of like peachy color. I chose this color because I was very inspired by the movie Tangled and Rapunzel, how she paints over everything in her room and turns it into a work of art, all her furniture and the walls and everything. And when I was looking at references, I saw that her bedroom color was a very desaturated yellowish pink. And so I was trying to capture that color for the can. That way I could build off of from there and take more inspiration from Rapunzel's murals and use multiple different colors, because if I were to make the background like a very saturated color, then painting on top of it with another saturated color or multiple saturated colors is not going to stand out in any way. So I was trying to pick a very desaturated color. And while that first layer was drying, I also applied a thin coat to the lid because I wanted it to be matchy-matchy. After those 2 base coats were dry, I tried to add a gradient to the trash can by starting with like a lighter yellow, like another desaturated yellow, and moving upwards towards the top of the can because, again, looking at Rapunzel's bedroom and tower, it kind of like rises up into the night sky and gets darker at the top, so I wanted to play around with that idea, but I was having a lot of trouble getting the gradient to work out and getting it to blend properly. I think it's because the base coats were dry, so I did end up trying to add some more of that same base coat and mixing it, but it just kind of looked like garbage, pun intended. Since I didn't like it, I ended up coating the entire thing in this purple color, which I thought was the same as the pink color from earlier, which it's clearly not. Anyway, so then I drew a bunch of stars on the lid. I coated the entire lid with like a bunch of different sized and shaped stars, again using references from Rapunzel's mural. You don't really see a lot of that in the movie, but up at the top of the tower, she paints stars so that it looks like she's outside, I assume. But when I looked at this, it kept giving me Frozen vibes, and obviously Frozen, that movie, wasn't exactly what I was going for, so part of me didn't really like it. I love the way it looks, I love how loaded with stars it is, it just kind of makes me happy, but it just really didn't convey the look that I was going for. But I tried to stick with it and continue down the can with this idea, and that's when I really realized this wasn't going to work because I started adding in these clouds, and the clouds were just too big and too low to be able to put any more like art beneath them. Like I was running out of room on the can. So I let it sit overnight, and when I came back to it in the morning, I decided, yep, I am going to paint over this thing. And I started all over again with a new base color. I think what it was making it feel kind of frozen-y was that purple base color, so I ended up picking a color that was almost the exact opposite of purple. But it's closer to what I wanted originally, so we're all good. Oh, I also painted the inside of the lid. That was really satisfying for some reason. So then I just waited for that to dry again and then grabbed a mechanical pencil and started all over again, but this time sketching out my idea before actually going in with the paint, which, let me just say, is much smarter. If I had gone into this like an actual smart person would, I would have like made a mock-up digitally maybe so that I could move things around and really get an idea of where I wanted all of the elements of the drawing and the painting, but I didn't do that, so that's why we had that whole mistake earlier. 3 minutes for you, about 4 hours for me. But we've learned something here. But honestly, I'm so glad I took this journey to reach this point because this was my favorite part. It was so much more familiar than painting, and drawing and sketching is like my favorite part of art. So I was very enthralled while doing this part of the process. But even at this point, I didn't really know exactly what I was going to draw, so I was kind of just throwing in things here and there. I started with Egg Girl, obviously, because that's just kind of what I'm comfortable with, and when I start with something that I'm comfortable with, I kind of like get a little bit more confidence and I'm able to try different directions and see where else I could take this art. I was still very inspired by Rapunzel's murals, so that's why there's a random flying fish because I don't know if you've ever looked, but Rapunzel likes drawing random fish everywhere. I didn't realize that till like yesterday, so that's new to me. I also added like vines everywhere because she does that as well. So while it's something that I've drawn, it's also very heavily inspired by things that Rapunzel has also included in her own murals. Yeah, I included like birds and owls, and I guess owls are birds, and fish and different flowers and things. Just trying to like fill up the space, because Rapunzel obviously only has so much canvas in her room. Like, she only has so many walls and so much furniture. So she has crammed every corner and every crevice with art, and that's what I really like about her bedroom. So I wanted to do that same thing when painting this can. So that is why I'm trying to cram as much little doodles and paintings as I can. I actually only sketched on one half of the can and then painted it because I realized that this pencil and graphite was smudging a lot, and I didn't want to have to like hold the back of the can where there was just graphite and smudge the crap out of it. So I decided to put paint on top of what I had already sketched, since I was pretty happy with the way it turned out. And then once that was dry, I was going to go to the back and start sketching some more, which was kind of fun because it like dispersed my favorite part of the art into like two sections, and then I was able to like experiment with the paint and like try new things, and it was really, really fun knowing that like, oh, once this is dry, I kind of get to go back to what I'm comfortable with, and it didn't feel as stressful. Like sometimes when you're trying art supplies that you're not as good with, it can stress you out just a little bit because it's not turning out the same way that art would look if you used a medium that you're more comfortable with, obviously. So I like to like disperse those moments, you know? Now, when it came to choosing the colors for the elements in this painting, I was really inspired by how Rapunzel would take a color family and create all illustrations in that color family and like group them together and then sort of create a rainbow from color family to color family throughout her whole mural. So I decided to do the same thing and try and create a bit of a rainbow gradient around the can. So you'll see I am grouping color families together. Except when it came to the character, that I kind of, you know, just tried to use the colors that I thought would look good. And I actually end up changing the color of that dress several times after I finished the entire painting, because I realized, oh wow, there's a color on like the opposite side of this can that would look really good as her dress. So I end up like, you know, incorporating a bit of the colors from the back of the can to the front of the can, and I think that actually made it look more cohesive. So I ended up layering a lot of different paints on top of each other, because obviously you have to do a couple layers just to get the base layer down, but then sometimes I change my mind and I want to change the color, so I end up going over it a couple more times with a different color. There's like so many layers of paint on this can. I'm surprised it doesn't just like peel off, but luckily I did that white vinegar trick, so it feels pretty sturdy. After I had gone in and painted her face, which actually happened to be part of my favorite part of painting, I just love globbing and blending around the face. I like adding the blush and like the shading. Faces are always my favorite part to draw, so it kind of makes sense that they're my favorite part to paint. But she looked a little creepy, and I didn't have a paintbrush that would draw thin enough to do the eyelashes that I wanted, and I looked through all my paintbrushes. I even tried a nail art paintbrush, but that still was just too wide. So I ended up going in with a brush pen, which worked really, really well. I was able to get fine points where I needed them and thicker points where I needed them, and it's a great void of any other color black. But I went a little overboard with it. I started putting it everywhere, which I kind of regret because I liked that painterly flat style, which was a little bit more Rapunzel, but I ended up using a lot of black heavy liner, which is a little bit more me, so you know, incorporating the two art styles, it's not a bad thing. I think when it comes to paint, I get a little nervous that I'm not detailed enough, so that's why I always like go overboard with the line art on top of it, because I know how to use a pen more than I know how to use paint, and that's definitely a bit of a crutch for me that I need to maybe think about in the future. Once the front of the can was dry, I went to the back and started sketching in my idea. Pretended I was Rapunzel and imagined what she might draw there. I actually didn't use a reference for this, so I'm really, really happy with the way it turned out, and it was my idea, so it's so cute. I don't know. Sometimes it just feels cooler when it's something you came up with and it looks like something someone else came up with. It always feels better than if you come up with something that looks like something you would come up with, you know? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I started painting the bejeebies out of this. There's that tree, so I used some green, and then I have a lot of vines, and then I set some like little owls on top of the vines. And when I'm doing the vines, I thought that would be a really great location to really work on the gradient. So I'd take one color and then slowly change it into another color and blend it out. And I think those turned out really, really pretty, and they're part of my favorite bit of this painting. I think they're, I don't know, they're just fun and cute to look at. And I like them. And again, making sure I include a little fishy anywhere that there's room in true Rapunzel style. Now, while this painting didn't turn out museum quality, let's say, there's one part of this painting that just gives me a little bit of cringe. And it's this bird, this green bird. I don't know what happened. The sketch was all right, like it wasn't too shabby, but the painting, it just had a mind of its own, and it went down its own path, and it became its own thing. I guess I had a hand in it, but it was, I don't know what happened. Oh, and then here's where I take that ice blue from the backside of the can and incorporated it to the front by coloring in her dress. She looks a little bit like Alice from Wonderland, but that's all right. And I just like the way it stands out from like all the pink and the yellow. When I painted over the stars that were on the lid, I decided to use that pink and a purple gradient. So kind of taking from that color family that was with the birds and the butterflies. That way it's kind of incorporating that color and bringing it upwards. And I'm pretty happy with the way that gradient turned out. And then while that was drying, I went back in with the brush pen and just basically went overboard and added black heavy lines everywhere. Anywhere that there was like the paint didn't completely convey what exactly it was, or any areas that needed more details. And then also I just outlined everything so that it was separate from the background color, which ended up being a little bit too similar to the colors that I used for the elements. So I wish that was just like maybe a little bit lighter, a little bit grayer, then the other colors would have stood out a little bit more. But that didn't happen, so I went in with the brush pen and went all over everything. So at this point, this is what our can looked like. So we got the girl and all the random assortment of nature-y bits and bobs surrounding her in a bit of a rainbow gradient, which I thought was kind of cute. I just really like how loaded the can looks. Like there's no space to put any more drawings, and that's what really gives me that Rapunzel vibe, and that's what I like about it. It's very busy, it doesn't follow a lot of design rules, and it's just fun and creative, and that's what I would think describes Rapunzel. Anyway, we need to move on to the lid because we are not done with that yet. Now that the gradient is dry, I'm going to start including some more doodles up here too, and in honor of Rapunzel, who I've mentioned so many times in this video, I decided to draw some chameleons like her pet, Pascal. I guess it's her friend, I don't know. The Disney princesses have pets or animal friends. I think they're animal friends. So I decided to draw her animal friend, Pascal. But the first attempt at that was like a really large chameleon, and I didn't really like the way it was looking, and it didn't really fit in that circular shape with the handle in the way. So I decided to kind of follow the theme of the lower half of the can and create a pattern of vines and then put some little chameleons like crawling on top of them. So I ended up with 4 in total, little green guys. I also added some like polka dots of different colors to kind of represent the fact that they can change their colors. And I thought it was even cooler, like once I was incorporating them, I was like, this is great because like a chameleon, it can change its colors and like look like something else. And I took this garbage can and turned it into something else by changing its colors. So I feel like there's the theme here. And once the paint was all down, I went over that with the brush pen again so that it's all matchy-matchy with the rest of the can. I think this made a significant difference, especially on the chameleons, because originally they were just kind of like green blobs, and then when I went in with the line art, it actually like defined where their limbs were. And I think they actually look better with the line art versus without it. So yeah, that's a good thing. And this is what it looked like. I am honestly quite proud of myself with this one. Like, it's not like museum quality or anything, but it was so much fun. And I don't know, I got to like put myself into Rapunzel's shoes and just take time and fill up space with art and doodles that it doesn't matter what they look like because you can paint over them and fix it as you go along and just, I don't know, just pass time and enjoy yourself with art because, I mean, not everything has to be perfect, and I love this, and I feel like I really upgraded this can, and I'm excited to use it to store some art supplies and things like that, and now I can use it as decoration instead of kind of an eyesore, you know? I did go over it with my kneaded eraser and erase a lot of the pencil, but now that I'm looking at this, I seem to have missed a few spots. But yeah, I think with the lid on top, it looks really complete. Like, I like the colors that I chose. It's really bright and princessy, and I don't know, it's really, really fun. I like it. What do you guys think? Would you ever paint a trash can? I've never seen anyone else do this on YouTube, so maybe I'm the first. I just had a lot of fun, and it was really like stress relieving and relaxing, and I recommend it for anyone. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys all next week, and I hope you have a delicious evening full of waffles. Bye!